Kia ora guys, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to another shed vlog. So obviously by the title today we are working on the back suspension on Lando, basically trying to make these 35s fit that we fitted in the last video. Obviously they're on the truck, but trying to make them clear is a whole different job. And long story short, I set up Lando on an absolute budget, didn't really know what I was doing, and got the suspension system in Lando so horribly wrong. It's on, I think it's currently on some factory length shock absorbers in the rear after I blew some extended ones. It's got extended bump stops, but I think they're longer than they need to be, so I'm losing up travel. It's got some really heavy duty springs in it, so it rides terrible. And overall, the whole rear end of the truck is just not set up very well. Nor the front, but we'll deal with that on another day. So today we're going to be addressing that all by tearing it all out and starting from scratch, making ourselves a clean canvas. I've got some parts on order. They're showing that they should arrive in tomorrow, so hopefully that arrives and we can get them on the truck shortly. But let's crack into tearing out all the less than desirable equipment. Right, so that's the truck jacked up as high as possible. The reason I've gone for as high as possible is so that when it comes time to cycling the suspension with the tyres on, so we can check for bump stop heights, we've got enough room to, articulate the axle so that we can see where the tyre's going to reach its highest point. That's well down the track, but that's just a bit of future proofing. Anyway, I'm going to crack into pulling this rear axle out. Unfortunately there's some damage on one of the mounts which needs welding up, so we'll just pull the whole axle out. It'll be easier and pretty much all has to come out anyway. Right guys, well that's how to break one of those ball joints. The trick is just to hit on the casing of where the ball joint goes into. That way you don't damage the threads, you're not having to damage any chance of damaging the ball joint itself. As you can see, mine's destroyed as it is, but that's the trick, smack there. Right, so we're just undoing the lowers, and I mentioned that one of them was bent. Have a look at that. That should be a straight arm. So I think that's like the third or fourth arm I've bent. The Land Rover ones are made of cheese. This is one of the reasons the axle's coming out. All new lowers and some fancy stuff going on with the upper as well once the parts arrive. So we're going to pull it all out, and that bent arm will be no more. Alright guys, well there we have it, it's out. What a mission. Time to do a clean up because man I made a mess, but this is the axle. It's just a stock Land Rover rear axle with a welded in diff pan, which is welded in not very well. Wasn't too pleased with the job the shop that I sent it off to do did probably a couple years ago, so I'll be doing that. I'll be fixing that up. It's also got an XS 4x4 truss kit on it. So I'll show you what goodies we've got. We've been lucky enough to work with a company, Kingpin Design Fab, over in Australia. They have absolutely hooked us up with some very nice suspension for the back half of Lando. We're only doing the rear because I can't afford to do the front as well. But I'll show you what we've got here. So we've still got the horrible old springs. Unfortunately the new springs are out of stock. We're going to be running Dobinson springs, but we'll change them out once they're actually available. So crusty old heavy duty springs for the time being, but then it gets exciting from there. So we've got 11.5-inch travel Superior Engineering remote res shocks. They're an awesome shock out of the box. However, Kingpin Design and Fab, they offer custom valving. I'll leave a link in the description to all their stuff for all you Land Rover nuts. Go have a look at that. Their website's awesome. They've got some very cool stuff. So custom valved shocks for Lando. We've got their spring retainer system. So previously I ran dislocation cones. Not the best idea, and it's awesome for flexing and showing off, but for having a stable, predictable vehicle, spring retainers are the way to go. We've also got a new upper ball joint. It's a taller one than the original factory one, so it's I'll give you a bit of a rundown later on why we're doing that. However, it's a Maxi-drive unit again from Kingpin. We've got their fancy rear shock towers over there as well. Those are to suit the pin mount on the shock absorbers, and they're also a lot taller to give you know, room for the longer shock absorber under full compression. And then finally, and I don't know if it's going to work, but hopefully it does, we're going to try and sneak these 80 series bump stops in. Initially I wanted to go hydro bump stops, but the way the Land Rover boot floor is set up with the height of the chassis, there's just no room to sneak a hydro bump stop in there and still have it nice and outboard. So I've picked these up. Hopefully we can make it work. We'll muck around with them today and work out if it's going to work or not. If not, we'll have to figure something else pretty quick smart, but that's the rundown. So from here we'll crack on into it. Just as I was saying how they're really good drill bits. Far out.
How long did that take?
Probably an hour. Helps when you've only got blunt step drills and broken step drills and dying drill. So, oh dear. Anyway, it's all done now. So we'll roll the axle under and start mucking around. Oh, I forgot to mention, we've also got new suspension arms, lower arms. As you can see, this one's nice and bent. So we've got some heavy duty cranked Gwyn Lewis arms to go in it. So it corrects for the lift as well. So pick those up from the guys at Modified Originals. So yeah, I'll throw that in, roll it under the truck and start cycling the suspension. The schnoz pusher. We're just going to go and throw the upper ball joint back in. The last one was unbelievably destroyed. There was like good 5mm play in the ball, so definitely needed replacing, and we went to Kingpin for the ball joint as well. So it's a Maxi-drive unit. It's got a self-lubricating Teflon liner, but the main selling point is that it is taller than factory. So basically you get 3 bonuses out of it. The factory one's probably only about this tall, so we've gained probably an extra 20mm. So what it does is, firstly, on a lifted vehicle, it gets your upper arm a lot flatter, which is good because it's working in a better range of motion. It's not trying to roll under the vehicle as much as you articulate and cycle the suspension. It also, smaller benefits because it's not actually a huge amount, but it does give you a slightly higher roll centre, so it makes the truck more stable on side angles and things. And it also will give you a bit more anti-squat. So rather than the truck pushing down, when you're on a hill, it'll really just want to drive forward. So all good benefits. So if you need to replace your A-frame, definitely worth considering. Right, upper is all done, didn't bother filming that. Next step, we're ready to cycle the suspension, but just need Matt, he's a bit busy working on his truck right now. I'll show you the upper shock mounts, the original upper and the Kingpin one. The Kingpin one's got a lot more height, so essentially that just allows you to fit a longer shock in, which gives you more suspension travel, but without having to spacey bump stops down anymore. So we'll throw those in while we wait for Matt, and once he's ready, we'll start cycling the suspension.
Smack it with a hammer.
Okay.
Hammer.
Right, well that's probably coming out again. Sweet.
Great success.
Great success. Right guys, well, first problem, not a problem I anticipated. We've run out of height on the jack, but as you can see we are seriously close to rubbing, so we'll have to do some trimming anyway. If you come have a look here, you can see we are just clearing, but still another good 100mm to go on that side. So that's what's happened there. Also on the passenger side we have hit the bump stop pad. Basically I'm running extended bump stops, which is fine. However, I've also got a truss on just the long side of the axle, which raises the height of the bump stop pad. So I've actually got more up travel on one side than the other, which is a bit weird. And yeah, we bottom out on the passenger side first, which is an issue that I'm wanting to solve. But as you can see, there we are, we're already on the pad on that side, and then over there still got another couple inches to go. So a little bit of a problem for when you're really honing and using all your suspension travel. So that is definitely something I'm wanting to sort by moving. Well, as you know, we're going to 80 series bump stops hopefully, but if I can't make that work, we'll be making them even and shorter bump stops to make it even both sides and still allow for a full range of movement. But yeah, we're going to crack on to trimming the door out, or trimming the guard out a little bit, and once we've trimmed that out, I need to figure out how to get this jack to go a bit higher, probably more blocks of wood, so that'll be fun. Bit sketchy, but whatever. That's the first cut done. Trick is to not do too much at once. Basically there's an old seam line that I followed. So you can see it's kind of a bit of a lip that I kind of followed along. And then kind of just tried to taper it up. Also, before you go cutting stuff, always talk to your cert man. Otherwise, you can end up cutting stuff which you shouldn't. Yeah, we've trimmed that out, and yeah, happy days. That's going to give us a bit more clearance. We'll cycle the suspension again. Obviously that'll all get tidied up and painted, but I don't know how much more we're going to need to take out. So yeah, we'll cycle it and see if that's solved our clearance problems. Obviously the door's going to need doing as well, but we'll worry about that another day. But yeah, far out. It always hurts a little bit taking a grinder to your loved truck, but it's all good. Well, that's fully compressed. As you can see, tyre's tucking in nicely. There's about a finger's width the whole way around, which is what we want. I was considering pulling out the bump stops to seeing if there was any more up travel we could get out of this system, but the thing is currently the axle is level, and then as one side flexes and drops down, it actually rotates the other side up. So we do want a little bit of clearance, because otherwise if you've got it all the way tucked up, you're just going to end up destroying your tyres as soon as you actually get any side to side flex rather than just up and down. So now what we're going to do is keep one side of the axle up and then drop the other side so that we can run the axle through its range of motion flexing. Basically cycle the axle and make sure that it's not going to jump up and jam into the guards. We're pretty much maxed out with as much as we can trim out the guard before the cert man's not going to be happy. Because the bump stops are so far inboard, it doesn't allow for very good control of up travel when you're flexing versus when the axles are horizontal. There's now like a probably 2.5–3 inch gap between, and the tyre's still really tucked. But if we space it out so that it doesn't rub on flex, then we're losing a heap of up travel, just when the axle's cycling normally. So I'll come show you my problem. So you can see the tyre is actually higher than it was before. It's now touching. So in fact it's touching pretty much the whole way around. So that is as far up as we are possibly taking it. However, it was on its bump stop before, and you can now see an absolute heap of room between there. So the way to fight that is to move the bump stop further out good thing that's the plan with the 80 series bump stops being inside the spring. Obviously, it's still not complete. It's still going to be inboard some, but the further outboard, the better. So that'll make for some improvement. All right. So after a bit more deliberation, thinking, I've decided what I'm going to do is throw the shock absorbers in. I've done some quick measurements. Looks like they should be just fine. Normally, what you do is you basically set it up at full compression and measure from shock mount to shock mount, and then you order your shocks. However, very handily, Kingpin Design, they have a lot of experience working with this truck, with these trucks, so I was just able to send them my setup, what shock towers I was going to be running, and what size bump stops I believed I was going to be running. Took a little bit of a gamble with that, but it looks like I've pretty much nailed it, so they were able to send me the shocks that from their experience they knew would fit correctly, and sure enough they look like they're going to be awesome. So thanks guys, much appreciated. However, what we're going to do is throw the shock absorbers in the truck and cycle the axles with the shocks in it. Basically the current issue I'm facing is I cannot get enough travel out of the axle with the tyres on, so what we're going to do is take the low side tyre off and use the shock absorber to show me how far the axle is going to drop down, and from there we'll take a few measurements and work out what size spaces we're going to need to make to run the 80 series bump stops. So these are the Superior Engineering 2.0 8-way adjustable remote resi shocks, bit of mouthful, and they've been custom valved by Kingpin Design for the Land Rovers. They're the same price through Kingpin with the custom valving as they are through Superior without the custom valving. So if you're a Land Rover guy, get in contact with Kingpin if you're wanting a set of these shocks. They are truly an awesome shock absorber. I've seen them performing on some Kiwi comp trucks and decided that I had to have them for Lando, so can't wait to throw them in. We'll crack into it now. Alright guys, well, good news is other side's in. So yeah, we'll throw the tyres back on and start cycling the suspension again. The good news is, and not surprisingly, but it's always nice just to be 100% sure, is that the shock lengths are the correct length. Kingpin nailed it. I'll show you, it's getting a bit dark, but hopefully the phone torch will show you. Just a smidgen of shock. Oh, camera doesn't want to focus, it's getting pretty dark, but as you can see there's just a bit of shock shaft left, which is exactly what we want. I think I'll close off today's work here for you guys, just because it's getting too hard to film. We'll pick this up tomorrow. Well, another day back on the build. Today we're looking to get the measurements all dialed in for the bump stop spaces. We've got to get some angles sorted. So I'll show you our problem we've got. So I'm doing something I've not done before, and that's using 80 series bump stops in the Land Rover, and then using the Kingpin Design and Fab spring retainers, and then putting the bump stops on those retainers. So I'll show you the problem we've got with doing it. Is essentially the bump stop is off center because of the fact that the spring retainer sits on the coil, which is on an angle compared to the horizontal plane. You can see it's hard over one side, so we need to get it sitting up like that, and that then makes a small, you can't see it, but it makes a small gap on one side. So because we have to get the bump stop height correct using spacers, we figure we're going to build the angle into the spacer. So what we're going to do is drop down the axle, mount up the springs and the retainers, figure out what angle everything needs to be on so that we can send that off to someone to get them to make us the correct size and correct angle spacers. So Matt's with us today, he's going to be giving a hand, much appreciated. Anyway, we'll crack into it. $25mm. Well, we've just ground to a bit of a halt, unfortunately. Found a bit of a problem. Thanks to Lando having been abused a little bit much and things like that. The body mounts have settled so much so that we can't get the upper spring retainer plate between the coil seat and the body. You can see just here the problem. It just plain does not go in. So that's going to require us replacing the body mounts, which no biggie. We just can't do it right now because we don't have any. So we've kind of ground to a bit of a stop. Also, we've been doing a mad crunch to try to get this truck ready for a West Coast trip next weekend that has now been cancelled because of the huge amount of rain forecast. It was just going to be no fun. So we've decided to, slow down on things. We were getting all those measurements for setting the bump stop height and angles with these springs. However, these springs aren't staying. We've got some new ones coming. They're due in at the end of the month. Seeing as there's no rush now, we're just going to wait until the end of the month and then get all the measurements with the correct springs that we're actually going to be using, like the angle and everything. So until then, kind of ground to a halt at the back end of the truck. Alright guys, well obviously it's a little bit later on now. The truck's full Carolina squat mode. We've got it sitting on the bump stops and a set of like 29s on the back and the 35s on the front. So a bit lean back, but that's all good. It won't be like that for too long. So we decided to wrap it up there. We'll worry about setting bump stop heights and things like that once we've got the new springs all sorted. But yeah, great progress. Can't wait to test out the new suspension setup. It's going to be an absolute dream compared to the clunky old system we had in it. So yeah, we've got heaps more coming for the kind of refresh on Lando. Obviously we've got the front suspension that we're going to be tackling shortly. We've got some parts for that waiting to go in. Got some axle related stuff, and then we're tackling some new bar work and a couple of other fancy custom things. So heaps coming for Lando. We've also got some cool trips coming up, so you know the story. If you haven't already, hit subscribe, give us a like if you enjoyed today's video, and let us know in the comments what you think of the the suspension system. If you've got any queries about anything, technical or not, let us know. We'll do our best to answer it. And yeah, we'll catch you all on the next one. Cheers for watching. We'll see you then. Oh, Matt was probably filming that.
Matt was.
That is gonna make the outtakes.